Okay, so it's 7:32. I'll call the meeting to order. Are we missing anybody? Let's see here.
I don't think so. Wait.
So I don't see Dan. I talked to him earlier today. He's driving, I think in Northern California or Wyoming. Wasn't sure he's going to have coverage. So if he wasn't able to go, he said to go without him.
He what?
He wasn't sure he's going to be able to connect.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you said.
Okay, so he might be joining us, might not. So we can start with citizen comments as usual.
Mark.
I'm sorry? Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Julie's not here yet for minutes.
Oh, okay. That is correct. We didn't hear anything from her.
No.
Okay, let's give it a couple more minutes. In the meantime, Natalie, do you want to text her and check in?
I don't know if I have her cell phone, but I can send her a quick email.
Who's up there?
Our minute taker.
Oh, she just emailed. Okay, I'm going to send her the link again. Here she is.
If I happen to disappear, my computer keeps threatening to force me to do some updates.
Mine is doing the same thing. I was just about to tell you that. I'm going to log in on my phone. So if I get kicked off,
that's a good idea. If my computer turns me off, I'll just hop back onto my phone. So if I disappear, that's why. I think I've forced it to wait, but you never know. Sometimes those things just start to happen. Welcome, Julie. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started then. And citizen comments, do we have anything in advance at all?
No.
Okay. Do we have anyone here present listening who wants to speak during citizen comment? If so, you can turn your mic on and go ahead, or turn your camera on to raise your hand. Just let us know in some fashion. You can type in the chat as well. Okay, I think we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from the June 10th meeting, and I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
Mitchell moves to approve the minutes.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and just remember, guys, to announce your name when you're making motions and seconding, so that just because we're on Zoom, we're supposed to. Makes it easier for the minute taker too. Okay, any questions or issues with the minutes? All right, if we are good, then Julie can roll call the vote on the approval of the minutes.
Ron? Sorry, you're muted, Debbie.
Something's wrong with my computer. I might go out, but
Okay,
yes.
great. Coin?
Oh, Julie, I think we talked about this before you got here.
Sorry, I was late.
Yeah, he might not be here, and he's not here yet, so we can just skip him until he shows up.
Got it. Okay. Mitchell?
Yes.
Morale.
Yes.
Great. And Gaines.
Yes. Alrighty, moving on to approval of the bills, and we'll hear from Brian on these.
Okay, the bills are quite extensive, so this could take a minute or two. I'll go down with the unusuals. Allied 100 is 2 AEDs for 2 more of our buildings. Andrea Veramis is a concert, so that's a $600 check. As we go further down, Continental Construction is the Reba fence, which is not quite finished. Should be done by Monday. Emma Moran is a reimbursement. She's a camp counselor. Evanston Lumber, a variety of needs for our parks. As we go further down, Brianna Hill is a refund. Home Depot is large. It's a variety of things, the largest being a refrigerator. Shama Jacober is our ready secretary. K Park Recreation is 4 tables, 10 benches, 10 trash receptacles, and 4 bike racks. As we go further down, Little Tykes Play Power, that's half of the balance due for the Reba Play Circuit. Gerald McClendon Concert, Model Music Concert, National Awards, 2 skate park guideline signs, rules and guidelines, and 10 banners, blank banners, which we use for Ridgeville publication and at the at the Ridgeville Park. Pennell Andrews Construction, Tot Lot Cleanup, Quill Corporation, 2 file cabinets, 2 fabric chairs, 8 conference room chairs, Recycle Away, 6 recycling bins, Russo Power Equipment, chainsaw, pressure washer, a small mower, the ones that you would push behind, but it's powered, a tiller, and a battery powered blower to keep us in line with City Council's new recommendations. Sunrise Tree, we pruned Reba, Lighter, and Ridgeville Park. School Outfitters is 4 mud tables for a variety of park needs. Sweetwater is speakers, mixer, soundboard, mics, mic stands, and cables for our own sound equipment for concerts. Maggie Weber is also a concert, and Yulia Borzova is a refund for Imaginary Game. It's a big month.
This is Ron. I'll make a motion to accept the bills in the amount of $91,886.95.
Is there a second?
Mitchell seconds.
Thank you. Brian, just the tree stuff reminds me, I had a question. You know that dead tree hanging into Reba from the neighbor that you and I were talking about? Did that?
It's gone.
It's
Taken
gone.
care of.
Oh, okay, awesome. And then Yulia, I don't know if this is the kind of typo that we need to go back and correct, but it just says Yuli instead of Yulia at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Any other discussion, questions from anybody? We can go ahead and roll call vote approval of the July bills. I mean,
Mhm.
June, sorry.
Debbie Braun,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Yes.
and Gaines.
Yes. July. I said June. It is July. I know what month it is. Okay, moving on to approval of petty cash expenditures, and we'll hear from Brian again on this.
Okay, as we go down the unusuals, Apple Incorporated, $2.99. That's iPad memory. Bed Bath & Beyond was shelving for the office. Dengio's was half a staff lunch. Dropbox Incorporated, digital storage. Fish Keg is the other staff lunch, which the inside crew, the 908 crew had. Home Depot, 3 power tools and a light pole for 908 Seward. Illinois Parks Recreation, Natalie, it's a membership to that group. So she'll be getting ideas and maybe even attending seminars there. Jewel and Osco, peanut butter and jelly for kids who forgot their lunch, and bread, I'm sorry. Mail chips, meetings, Menards, garden to table supplies, Microsoft software subscription, Office Max was a table for the conference room, Sam's Club, a variety of snacks. And we bought some more tables and chairs for inside 908 Seward. Target, kickballs for camps and Zooms meetings. As you see, petty cash was over the $3,000 limit by $649.38. I requested to go over with President Gaines and she approved. I actually said we might get the $6,000, but we only got the $3,600.
I noticed that, Brian. I was like, I approved this. We didn't go over much. Did you say anything about Amazon? I feel like you jumped right into Apple.
I'm sorry, what?
Did you say anything about the Amazon right at the top? I feel like
Amazon is a variety of camp supplies. Second session started and we re-upped camp supplies, mostly art stuff, art supplies.
Great. Is there a motion to approve the petty cash for July?
Mitchell moves to approve the petty cash marked July 9th in the amount of $3,649.38.
Ron, I'll second it.
Thanks. Anybody else have questions, issues? All right. Julie, if you would roll call the vote, please.
Braun,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Morale,
Yes.
and Gaines.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Moving into the monthly reports then, and I'll turn it over to you first, Brian.
Okay, based on the June board meeting, we ordered much needed equipment that puts us ahead of the 2021-2022 budget. I have a list attached to my report, which you also do. You can see that. That will give you an idea of what we ordered. I gave you a pretty good idea in the bills report that I just did. Also, in the July board meeting, this board meeting, you will need to pass a tentative budget. Then to keep you informed of the calendar, you will then pass appropriation ordinance in September and then a levy ordinance in December. Summer programs are off and running. By the time we have this meeting, we'll be in session 2. We're actually in week 5, 3 more weeks to go. Natalie will give you a more complete update in her report. Farmers Market started the concert series on Wednesday, July 7th, which was yesterday. The maintenance crew has been extremely busy with park maintenance, which includes cutting, trimming, watering when necessary, special events and projects. The big project this week is getting ready for Soccer Fest, which is Saturday. The maintenance crew, the fence has been moved forward at Reba Park. It will be done on Monday. Pennell Andrews Construction completed a cleanup in the tot lot. Sunrise Tree Service pruned Lighter Park, and we just finished Brummel Park. I say we, they just finished Brummel Park early this week. Also on the 7/8/21 agenda, discussing a new 3-year contract for Sykich. As our auditors, Jerry and I will be in the meeting to answer any of your questions. Skate area opened on June 21st. The maintenance crew put 3 coats of sealant on each piece of equipment to help protect them from the elements. They also added some soundproofing material to the large obstacles, which helped immensely with noise. It's not perfect, but it's still pretty good. We had some neighborhood complaints, but it seems the soundproofing really helped. In monitoring this issue, my update to you is my staff, Youth in the Park staff says it's all running well at the park. The noise is much reduced, and there have not been any problems since the first 2 days, and they weren't really problems. I will be on vacation from July 31st through August 9th. Natalie will be in charge, and I will also be able to be reached whenever necessary. Attached to my report, you'll see pretty much a repeat of what I just set in the bills, but you can see what we spent for each one on a variety of things from the recreation fund and the corporate fund. That's it. You know, I should say one more thing. I don't know if we've announced it, but we have hired an office manager to take Abby's place, and she's already started. Her first name is Young and her last name is Hauer, and she comes with a vast amount of experience. And when you get a chance, not necessarily in the next week or two, because she's working real sporadic hours, but in late July, early August, come on in and meet her. She's going to do a fine job.
Thanks, Brian. Just a quick question. Did your report, other than the last page, which is the, sort of charts of the way we spent that extra money, did it have a page two? Because mine like just kind of ends and it looks like maybe it's.
Oh, you know what? Probably my fault. There's a sentence on the back page, which was a two-sided copy.
Oh, okay.
We had some neighborhood complaints early. I'll monitor the situation, and then the vacation sentence is on the second page. That's my fault. I copied that.
Okay, no worries. Sounds like it wasn't much, and that you said it already. Thank you for including this page about the those expenditures. That's helpful, even though they're noted elsewhere. It's nice to have sort of this specific list as well. Any other questions from anybody for Brian?
You have a question. How many applicants did you get for that secretary job?
I think approximately 5. We interviewed 3.
And Brian, how's the skateboard equipment going?
What's that?
How's the skate area going?
Oh, it's going fine. The first couple days when we opened, it was busy. I visited on the second day, and we had a little minor problem with a beer drinker, but that was easily solved. And my Youth in the Parks crew says it's all been pretty darn good. So
Right.
The kids are mostly the same kids, and hasn't been a real large crowd since the first or second day, but there's good steady usage.
Great.
Brian, does it seem like anybody's moving the stuff around, or does it seem like it's just kind of staying where it was put?
They move it around a little bit, but I think they found their best positioning now, and it's been in the same spots now for the last week or so. But it's easy to move around for them, and they're welcome to move it around. It just can't leave the park.
Yeah. All righty. Sorry, my computer isn't. Okay, there we go. I was trying to read what Jerry sent. Thank you again, Brian. Speaking of Jerry, we'll move on to Jerry's report next.
Hello there, everyone. As far as monthly financial reports, I don't have the usual set of reports included in the distribution this month because of the short timeline between when to the end of the month fell and when the board meeting happened. We didn't get bank statements in time to give me enough of a window to work with. So you'll get the preliminary June financial reports at the August board meeting. Those will also reflect the first round accruals coming out of payment of. As a refresher, this time of year, we're kind of locked down June 30th until we get through and process the approval of the bills from the August meeting, which allows us to post entries that occur in July and August that need to be processed back into the fiscal year ending June 30th. The final report won't, the final closing of the books won't happen until sometime at the end of August, early September. And that's the point at which we bring the auditors in to start the audit process. As far as notable activity, Cook County, through the clerk's office, has notified us that the tax rates, the equalized assessed valuation reports, and the results of applying PTEL to the tax extensions is not yet available. Typically, they get this done in June, and that's what then allows the tax bills to go out to taxpayers. But the state of Illinois has not yet released the equalization factor, which is one of the variables used in the calculation. They haven't said it yet, so it's not certain, but it may mean that the 2020 second installment tax bills will be delayed going out to taxpayers. And if that happens, then there likely will be delays in when we receive our property tax revenue in the late summer, fall. From time to time, historically, this happens, but it's still up in the air as to how late they're going to be and whether we'll have that kind of an impact. You have in my report a rather lengthy proposal for a motion, and unfortunately, since I distributed that report, I came across 2 more entries that need to be added to it in the form of an amendment to it. I asked Natalie earlier tonight to send that around to all of you by email. I know that's short notice, and I don't know if you've had a chance to read it. I copied and pasted the text of that into the chat window and attached a PDF copy of it there. So by one form or another, hopefully you get a chance to look at the 2 additional items that I'm proposing be added to it. And I sent Julie a copy by email for her to use in preparation of the minutes. But I would ask that the board make this recommended motion so that we can clean up a number of financial entries as a part of the year-end closing process. So rather than my read through the whole thing now, I'll just kind of refer you all to the written document, and I'll entertain any questions on it and would ask somebody take the lead on moving and starting the process.
I got a quick question. It seems like basically just housekeeping on most of these things, correct?
Correct.
Just balancing the books, making sure everything's in the place it should be. It's not like there was major missed payments or anything like that going on. This is just to clean up the books, correct?
Exactly right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So Jerry, are you ready for us to make those motions now?
If you're done with questions and discussion, sure.
All right, does anybody else have any questions about that content that Jerry supplied us with? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion for those things. Jerry, do we need to make those motions separately, or can that be one motion?
I drafted it in a way that can all go under one big bill, one big motion of 11 adjustments.
Okay,
Or kind of the boldface type there would be the way I would recommend.
All right, so I'll go ahead and do this. Mitchell moves that the treasurer be directed and authorized to make the following adjustments and corrections as of the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021 to these unreconciled financial transactions. There's 11 separate transactions on 2 separate pages. Those will be incorporated into the minutes.
okay, and is there a second for that motion?
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Morel seconds.
All right.
Any final questions for Jerry from anybody before we vote on that? All right, I think Julie, you can roll call the vote, please.
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
and Gaines.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Jerry. Moving on to Natalie's report. You've got the floor, Natalie.
Hi, can you see me? My
Yes.
computer is, okay, great, cool. All right, summer camp session 2 has begun. I cannot believe how quickly the summer is flying by. Session 1 went very well. We had a smaller group of kids than we normally do in June, but it was a really cool opportunity, not just selfishly for me to be able to like know all the kids individually, but also to kind of help us ease back into group activity. The staff did a terrific job. V and Christina are the camp directors, and they've done a really great job, and they're troopers. They're there all day, and I could not be happier with them. Session 2 began on Tuesday, July 6th, and is off to a great start. We have a few more kids this session. We were able to accommodate every family that was on our wait list, but still maintain a manageable number of campers. I brought on 2 additional camp staffers, 2 counselors to help out this session. Also, they're doing fantastic. Farmers Market began on June 23rd at Ridgeville Park. We have quite a few vendors this year. Lyons Fruit Farm is back. Cat's Cookies is back. We have Shady Dan's, who sells hot sauce. We have Life Sweet Incorporated, which is a bakery that's in Rogers Park that has joined us. Cocina Azteca is also joining us and selling prepared food at the concerts, which is really great. They had a great turnout last night for our first concert. We also have quite a few local organizational booths, including Our World Energy, Baker Demonstration School, Leaf Guard, and Journey Care Foundation. The market is going to run this season through August 25th. Concerts on the Ridge kicked off last night. It was great. We had a great crowd. We almost made it all the way through the concert before the rain started. We only had to cut short maybe 15 minutes, so that was okay. We have concerts every Wednesday night through the end of August, so 8 concerts in total. They start at 6 o'clock and go till 7:30. The lineup I have listed for you here in my report. Next Wednesday, we have Gerald McClendon coming back. He was with us last summer and he was fantastic. So if y'all are free next Wednesday, I recommend coming and checking that out. The Soccer Fest is this Saturday. It's a 4-on-4 festival. It's a partnership between Ridgeville Park and the Ridgeville Foundation. It's from 9 a.m. till 12 p.m. There's going to be music and food available. All are welcome to attend, even if you're not playing soccer. Team registration is still open on our website. And then finally, the mural benches. Sherry Lee Charlton has begun mural work on our benches at Ridgeville Park. They look fantastic. She's done 2 so far. She's going to do 5 in total. This is a partnership between Ridgeville Park District and Evanston Art Encounter. It was budgeted in the last fiscal year, but due to weather, she was not able to start until this last week. So she's got 3 more to go. They look fantastic. If you get a chance to walk by the park and check them out, I recommend doing so. And that's it.
Thanks, Natalie.
Yes.
Yeah, the benches look amazing. I think I like them both, what I've seen so far, but I think I'm partial to the one with the bees and the flowers. It's so
Very
cool.
She's going to do the large blue bench that's by the courts, and she's doing some like sport themes on that. So with all the benches, she's pulling design elements directly from the mural. So one of the benches will have hummingbirds on it. She's done flowers, she's done the bees, but she's going to do some sports stuff on that large blue one that's right there by the courts. So that's going to look pretty cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mick.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi.
My family was I was working. My family was at the concert last night. They loved it.
Yay!
Thank you. I have a question for you, kind of for Brian. I was out walking the other day. I ran into Sherry. She's great. The benches look incredible. Do we have like a pop-up tent shelter or something? Because I know one day she was out there and it was super hot. So if we had some type of tent that we could give her some shade while she's out there working in the middle of the day in the sun.
That's a great idea. Actually,
Okay.
thank you for bringing that up. We just bought a couple new ones.
Okay, super.
Thanks,
So
Mike.
maybe we could have the guys throw that up for her. I don't know if she's doing it tomorrow. Obviously tomorrow, based on the weather, right? But I know one day she was out there and it was super duper hot. So I just think it would be nice, and I think it would probably help the paint if the paint weren't cooking in the sun while she was painting. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mick. That's a great idea. She's got, sometimes she comes on the weekends, so I'm not sure. I can try to coordinate with her on that. But when she's there during the week, that's a great idea. We can absolutely set that up for her.
All right, thank you so much, Natalie. Any other questions from anybody? All righty, so next we will move on to hearing from JC about the Ready Committee. Hi, JC.
Hi there. I don't have all that much to report. We have had to postpone our last two meetings. We have not met since the last board meeting. Dr. Effiam's contract was up on July 1st. So that's definitely on our agenda to talk about that in our next meeting. But we are meeting next Thursday, July 15th at 6:30. So we'll be talking about that. I don't have anything else to report since we haven't had much going on. Does anyone have any questions?
I do. Is that the cabin?
It is the cabin.
Nice.
Yes, it's nice to get out of town for a little bit.
Very cool. Any other questions for JC?
Thank you all.
Thanks, JC. Okay, moving on, in the old business section, we have nothing. In the new business section, the first thing is to discuss and approve the tentative budget, as Brian mentioned, for 2021, 2022. And so I'll turn that over to you, Brian.
Okay, so the tentative budget is the same that I handed out in the June meeting. I just want to go over, highlight some of the big ticket items that are in the tentative budget. In CA6, we have computer needs listed at $6,000. In CA51, we have a new roof needed for the maintenance garage at $15,000. In R17, nature-based play area for $22,000. R23, partner camps at $40,000. R17, install new play equipment at Reba. That'll be approximately $8,500. That number is going to change a little bit. In C600, we're asking for a multi-use vehicle that will be able to plow the sidewalks in the winter and also drag the baseball diamonds in the summer. This is not a street vehicle, it's a park vehicle. And then in the Vandenhaven, we asked for another $10,000 in beautification. So those are the real big ticket items. As we go further down the agenda, the audit is going to be on there for a 3-year contract, which starts at $9,500. And as we already mentioned, the Ready Committee will discuss some of the issues and budgetary issues for the equity account. And R49 after school program is on the budget again this year. It will happen. We just don't know when it's going to start. And that's at $12,000. I also want to let you know that on some of the stuff on the tentative budget is we've already bought it. So there's room for adjustment because we just spent a lot of money. For instance, the sound equipment is on the tentative budget and we just bought it before year end. So there's room to move numbers around and there's room for more good ideas potentially to go into this tentative budget.
Brian, I have a couple questions. One is, would you be able to put together just a simple report for us of which specific things we don't have to spend money on in this upcoming budget because of just spending them, as you mentioned? So we know about, I mean, could we basically refer to that last page of your report and that's effectively, but I don't know necessarily like which categories of the budget those will correspond to.
So I could do that for you and send it out in the next week if that's what you want me to do. But there's things that are going to come out, obviously, that we've already bought. I would have to match up the tentative budget to the purchases. But the big one is the sound equipment. That's $10,000. So but there are going to be a few others.
Okay.
So,
I mean, knowing which, categories each of the
Right.
things that we spent recent money on could come out of, that'll obviously help us know how that number will adjust. And I don't see a need necessarily to have it ASAP, but I would think by our August meeting, the copy of the budget that we're working with will have those changes. If that's okay.
Right, sure can.
Okay. And then another question, I couldn't quite follow you in real time. I don't want you to repeat everything you said, but can you just note the whatever we call that sort of coding for which CA10, for instance? Can you just read off the ones you mentioned?
Okay, CA6 is office supplies.
CA6, okay.
That's going to be computers. CA51 is capital improvements to facilities. That's the new roof on the maintenance garage, $15,000.
Okay.
R17 is capital outlays for playgrounds and parks, and that's nature-based play area to be discussed at $22,000. R23 is program supplies, and that's partner camps, approximately 40. That's imaginary game and a few other classes and camps that go on throughout the year. R17 again is capital outlays for parks and equipment. That's the playground equipment installation at Reba, which will be about $8,500 sometime in August, early September. CA 600 is capital improvement project funds. And that we're asking for a $25,000 vehicle to save everybody's bodies from shoveling snow. And so that'll remove snow from the sidewalks and help us drag baseball diamonds in the summer. It's approximately $25,000. And again, this is not a street vehicle. It's a park vehicle. The city has one, does a real nice job. And then the Vandenhaven beautification, asking for another $10,000 to help us prune trees, clean up parks, plant in different areas that is beautification needed. So those are the biggies.
Okay. Any questions for Brian? Oh, I guess we're approving this tentative budget, so we should probably actually start with a motion.
Correct.
Okay, somebody want to make the motion to approve the tentative budget?
This is Braun. I'll make a motion to approve the tentative budget. I can't. Okay, is that it? Or is there something else?
In terms of the wording, Brian, does the wording have to be specific there from Debbie?
I would defer that to Charles. Charles is listening. At any rate.
Well, how about this? I make a motion to approve the tentative budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, ending June 30th, 2022.
I think the first language was sufficient, but there's nothing wrong with the second language either.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right.
I'm sorry I couldn't find my mute button faster.
That's okay.
Mitchell seconds the motion.
Great, thanks. So now that we can discuss it,
Martha, do you want to do roll call vote?
well, yes, but is there any additional questions or discussion from anybody before we move to a vote?
Brian, where is the money we put towards equity work?
That is in, hold on one second. Hold on. I believe it's R40. No,
CA 21, I think.
what is it?
CA 21.
Yeah, it says we've got 19.5 there. It's on the first page, in the summary page. CA 21, board development activities.
Yes, there you go. on my back page. That's why I couldn't find it. Yeah, so it's the same number as last year, but I think the Ready Committee is, it's the same, Equity Outreach is the same number. The overall number is $19,500. But I think the Ready Committee is going to discuss what they think their needs are and get back to us on that outreach number.
I've got a question about that and also more broadly. So I feel like I remember, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, that the formatting of these budgets was changed at some point in the recent past where we have this summary page on the front and then it goes into a little bit more detail on the subsequent pages. Is that right?
It's not a change. That's the way it's always been. We
Oh, it
have
is.
the-
Okay.
The summary up front for each of the funds and then the detail pages.
Okay.
When we get around to having an ordinance, the detail pages aren't a part of the ordinance, only the summary.
Okay. So on the first page, I see everything Brian mentioned except for Van de Haven, unless I'm missing it. I don't think
That's C600. That comes up on the last page. That's not tax. That's not tax money. That's either out of reserves or out of her bequest.
okay. And when you say the last page, you're talking about Exhibit A?
No, the last page of the budget, right before Exhibit A. You have to flip the page. It's two-sided copy. CA 600.
Mine is not a two-sided copy.
The digital packet seems to be missing some of the pages, is what I noticed. The summary page,
My
page
paper copy
1
is
of
not
8,
two pages
page
either.
1 of 8 has C600 at the bottom. But then when I go to find the detail pages, I don't seem to have that.
Yeah.
I
Now
got
that
page
now
2
that
of
I'm
8,
looking-
page 4 of 8, page 6 of 8, but I don't have the odd pages.
Yeah, so I'm looking at my paper copy and it says page 1 of 8, 2 of 8, but then it goes to 4 of 8, 6 of 8, and then Exhibit A. So,
I will have to take credit for screwing that up too.
okay.
Yeah.
Charlie, can we approve this this tentative budget if the details of it aren't fully in front of us?
Yeah, I think you can, because this is really just a guideline to what's going forward. So the question really is, are you comfortable with the information you have to determine whether you're meeting the guidelines in going forward in the tentative budget?
Well, plus we can always we have multiple steps to make.
You will be voting on a final budget at a certain point, and that's the one where I would have a lot of problem if you were missing a figure to be inserted later. But here, this is really just a guideline for developing that final budget. This is the kind of thing you look through and you decide that the entry for beautification of Reba Park is 5,000 less than you want it to be, and you suggest that it be increased. But you could still approve the tentative budget as is, and then the draftsman of the budget will go back with your comments in hand and revise this, and eventually you'll get a final budget, which hopefully will meet with your desires and be voted on.
And I would add it, Brian had mentioned that it's the same as what he distributed last month. And I just quick looked at the digital packet from last month and the odd pages were there. So you have seen the pages, or you have access to them in last month's digital packet.
May I say a quick thing?
Yeah.
I scanned the budget pages for this meeting from the packet I was given, but I can find the PDF in our Dropbox and email it to you. So I'll do that tonight.
Okay, that would be great.
Yep.
I mean, I remember, I think that copy from last month was correct. I wasn't saying that I was uncomfortable approving this, more as a technicality. I just wanted to make sure Charlie was okay with us approving a document that is incomplete in front of us. So
Yeah, but these numbers aren't final.
right.
They're going to move in one direction or the other.
Right, it's a
And
tentative budget to begin
This
with.
is, you're comfortable with what you've seen to date and that it's meeting what you think, but it has to be continue to be revised. It doesn't have the force of law if you're approving it. You're just approving the process and the way it's being developed.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so before we move to a roll call vote, because my other questions were just trying to find some of the items that Brian referenced, and now I know that they're just on the pages we don't have. So I will go and double check that. So does anybody else have any questions, issues before we move to the roll call vote? Okay, Julie, if you would please, roll call the vote.
Braun,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
and Gaines.
Yes. Okay, moving on to the next item in new business, discuss and approve the auditor's 3-year proposal. I'll turn the floor over to Brian for this. Are you there, Brian?
I'm sorry, the history, I'm sure you all remember that Canuti used to be our auditor 2 years ago. Sykich bought it. First year we had a very slow process of completing the audit. The second year was, in my opinion, very nice, done very well, very professionally. So we currently have run through the contract that we signed with Canuti that Sykich took over. So this is what Sykich is requesting that we approve a 3-year contract, 2021 audit 9,500, 2022 audit 9,700, and the 2023 audit $9,900. What it boils down to is not so much if we're happy, is if basically the auditor works for you and the public, the citizens of Ridgeville. So basically, if you're happy or you have any other questions, Jerry and I can answer them. From my standpoint, they're top-notch professional organization.
Brian, I just have a couple points. One is the amount quoted from Sykich is 9,500, but in our budget, we only have 6,700.
Correct. That's one of those areas that's going to change.
Okay.
And we have plenty of room to change, again, because certain things have already been purchased.
Okay.
So
And then
there'll be more.
secondly, we've talked about this before, and Jerry, maybe you can chime in. Is it best practice to change auditors from time to time?
Yes, it is good practice to do that. In a way, we've kind of done it in a backdoor fashion, in that Sykich is not who's been doing it, and the first year of Sykich was our former individual from Canuti who did it, Kate Moulton, but this most recent go round in the middle of the process, it switched to Jim Savio. So we don't really know whether it'll be Jim or another assigned partner or auditor at the firm to actually do the work. But just by that process of change on their side, we've effectively.
I would agree with
and I kind of like that, because I like having a change of auditor, because it's a new set of eyes coming in, and that's always good.
I would agree with everything that Jerry said with regard to the auditor, and in effect, we have had a change.
And Jerry, what would you say is the kind of best practice for changing from time to time?
You mean in terms of like length of time?
Yeah.
I'd say that 3 years is a pretty comfortable level. It's not an easy or fun process to go through finding someone.
Yeah.
We kind of got a little comfortable with Canuti, and frankly, as far as best practice, we probably weren't following a best practice. We stayed a little too comfortable with them too long. I was going to observe in terms of the rate, it's quite a hike, but as I recall, the last go round on Canuti, they actually lowered their rates. And so if you were to kind of take the trend over time, this probably isn't out of line with where the trend would have been if the aberration of that last renewal at Canuti was odd. It's like the workload hasn't gone down, it's only gone up, and yet they lowered their rates. And I'm not quite sure what that was all about. I mean, we were happy to take it, but it was odd.
Jerry, is it your recommendation to stick with Sykich for this next year?
For certainly this next year, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with the 3-year term either. we've gone quite a while without a lot of recommendations, if you will, from the auditor. And since we've switched to them, they've kind of had two areas. Well, they've had a few things, but they've definitely put more focus on just the separation of duties issue, and that is inherent in our size, not an easy thing to address, but it's probably good that they remind us that we need to keep an eye on that issue. The second outstanding item that nothing's really been done with since last year's audit is the issue of the recommendation saying we should be paying interest on the cash balances in the other funds, which is a big discussion. The more I've kind of thought about it, it's not an easy thing for us to implement. Yet I welcome their perspectives in bringing information to the table. It remains to be seen whether we're able to kind of work and implement those, or whether we have to push back a little bit and see how they react to the pushback on it.
Thank you.
Brian, I have a couple questions for you, and I'm sorry if I missed this. But given that Commissioner Mitchell was noting the discrepancy between what we've budgeted for our audit and what they're proposing to charge us, so you might have said this already. What have we paid? We've been with Sikich at least 2 years, correct? Because Canuti changed or was bought by Sikich. So we've been with them for 2 years. What did they charge us those 2 years?
They took over the Canuti contract, which ended up at about $6,600 or $6,700.
Okay, for both of those years.
Now that was Canuti's 3-year proposal, which you guys approved 3 years ago. Now this is Sikich's new 3-year proposal, which is about $3,000 a year higher.
Okay, so they were honoring the price that had already been approved for Canuti. Okay, and Jerry, does this seem normal and reasonable to you that the price went up in this amount? And a follow-up question is, as Mitchell asked, changing regularly might be a good practice for reasons other than the cost of the audit, but the cost of the audit is another thing to consider. And I would just like to know, before we say yes to 3 years of an increased price, by about what, like 33%, what do you think about that price increase?
Well, I think prior to Sikich, their last go round, they had reduced their rates a bit for whatever reason. It was never clear. I think we were paying closer to 7,000 or 7,200 at one point in time. We'd go back and look, and had kind of normal price increases been coming along, it wouldn't be a $3,000 gap. We might be talking a $1,500 kind of gap had the kind of normal path over time been followed. But for some reason, maybe they knew they were going to merge. Maybe they were, I don't know, or maybe they made a mistake. I just don't understand why. It's just highly unusual that they did a rate reduction in the last renewal period with us. But it's unusual in that it's not consistent with the historical path that's been the case with our audit expense.
How long were we with Canuti prior to Sikich, I don't know which one is correct, taking over?
Since before my time as treasurer.
So many years.
Yeah, I'd say at least 10 years, possibly longer.
Okay. If we were to shop around, whose job is that to look into other auditing firms?
The board.
Okay. Brian, are you currently familiar with any other options that would be a good fit or no? Oh, Brian, you're on mute.
I am not. I mean, as Jerry just said, that's kind of a board job. I typically don't pay attention to it. I don't think you want us looking for an auditor because we're the ones
being audited.
Yeah.
We're the hen house.
So
asking the fox to guard it.
How does everybody feel about tabling the approval of this until next month? And some of us board members can look into additional options. I'm not saying that we wouldn't necessarily end up moving forward with Sikich, but I think it's a best practice to at least entertain a couple other options, if for no other reason than just checking prices. And then also, you know, I mean, again, for the first purpose that we talked about of a best practice of changing, we've only been with Sikich officially 2 years, right? Because it was Canudi before that. But Jerry, as you said, we didn't make that change. It was just a, you know, one company buying another type of situation.
They took over a pre-existing contract.
Right.
My only concern with waiting another month at this time is I realize the time's short and all that, but typically it's mid-August that we're scheduling the beginning of the audit process.
Okay.
And I wouldn't want them to fill their calendar and have no room for us if we weren't signed up with them.
That's a fair point. I realized too, I wanted to ask, if we approve this, are we locked into a 3-year contract, or can we be approving just 1 year so that we retain the option of doing something different next year? And I mean, I guess I'm asking you, Brian, because as it is on the agenda, we are supposed to approve the auditor's 3-year proposal. And I'm just not clear if that means we're in a contract with them.
I would venture to guess that if you said we'll take you for a year, the price is not going to be $9,500. It'll be higher. But I don't know that for sure.
So we could always take them for a year and then in August decide to go with 3 years. And I don't think they would give you a higher price, but it's a gamble.
Oh, you mean, Charlie, it buys us a little bit of time on deciding about the next 2 years.
Yeah, you're our auditor for next year. We've got a lot of crap going on. We haven't gotten around to deciding beyond that. And then in August, you can come back. You can contact a couple of other smaller park districts, see what kind of rates they're paying. If the numbers are reasonable, you may just decide then it's good enough to go with them for 3 years. Or you could decide you want to open a search up for after this year. I'm trying to find the letter. I have it here, but.
Jerry, did I hear you say a few minutes ago that every 3 years, roughly, give or take, is a good amount of time to change auditors, or am I making that up?
No, I think that's a reasonable amount of time.
Okay, because if we approve 3 years and we've already been with them for 2, we're looking at a total of 5. If they were okay with us just doing 1 year, and if they would honor their proposed pricing, assuming, as Charlie just suggested, that we actually do get back to them in August and say, yep, you know, at this point, we're good to go with you for those next 2 years. You know, to me, if we can swing that, it's the best option, because we retain this current pricing instead of risking that they go up. I mean, they will be, I think, viewing this competitively, because if we don't approve all 3 years right now, I mean, I really don't think they're going to try to charge us more. That makes us even less likely to go ahead and approve the subsequent 2 years. So, you know, I mean, I'm also not uncomfortable going with this 3 years. And, you know, we were with Canudi for, Jerry's estimating 10, give or take. If we're with Sikich for a total of 5, I'm not super concerned about it. I just think it is a good point, as Mitchell brought up, that, you know, best practice is to just kind of make sure you're changing frequently enough that you can see how different companies are doing it, different pricing, that kind of stuff. And even though we had a great year with Sikich, you know, last year in terms of things just going how they were supposed to and on the timeline they were supposed to, the year before that was a hot mess. So,
Well, in the year it was a hot mess because that was really the year we changed auditors. That's the price to pay switching auditors.
It was awful. Yeah.
Getting converted into their systems and going through their process is going to be painful every time we do it. It's inviting, you know, if we were to change now to another company, it's inviting a year like we had then.
Okay, that's kind of news to me, because I knew that some of their delays were because of all of that changeover. I wasn't aware that that's going to be the case every time we change auditors. Is that just comes with the territory of changing auditors, even though it's still a best practice?
Yes. Because, you know, because you got all new people on their side learning how we do things, more work on our side, explaining and educating them about what we do. And then they've got to establish the chart of accounts and process on their side. And that was the whole reason why we had all the problems, was they had underestimated the process. Now, the one thing in defense of them, it wasn't like one client switched. Their problem was they were taking over every single client of Canuti, and they just got overwhelmed with the size of they had underestimated what kind of a task they were facing.
Yeah, that's a good point. Debbie, I'm sorry, were you saying more there?
Well, that's it. I was just gonna weigh in that I vote to stay with them. I mean, I'm listening to what Jerry has to say, and I feel like if Jerry supports it, I don't know any real good reason not to approve it tonight, but that's just my own.
Before the 3 years is up with them, we should go through a process of just exploring what other options do we have. But
Right,
I don't see it as a bad practice that we kind of stick with them for a 3-year term,
Right,
as
and
long as
actually,
we're on a path to reevaluating it at some point.
if as a board, we take these next 3 years that we're with Sikich to, you know, investigate other options, that's a whole lot more time for us to do that task than trying to do it before next month or something. Even waiting just until next month sounds like it's not great, that there's some downsides to that kind of delay. I'm realizing we're here discussing, we actually didn't make a motion. So let's do that, which we should have. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the auditor's 3-year proposal.
This is Braun. I make a motion to approve the auditor's 3-year proposal.
Mitchell seconds.
Okay, so we have already discussed it a lot, but technically we would be in discussion now if anyone has anything additional to say before we let Julie roll call the vote.
I agree with Debbie. I'm comfortable with making a 3-year commitment, but then probably at that point thinking about switching, and to your point, Martha, we'd have some lead-in time to do some real research.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, unless anyone's got anything additional, we can let Julie roll call the vote.
Ron,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Morrell,
Yes.
and Gaines.
Yes. All right, moving on.
If I could just quickly, is there a master calendar that the Park District has? Because I think if there is, we should put on in January of 2024 to start the process for, considering a request for proposals for new auditors. Just a suggestion.
That's a great suggestion. And Brian, do we have sort of a master calendar other than the perpetual yearly calendar? Do we have something where we can add specific items so that we sort of get a reminder?
We currently do not.
Maybe we could just put it in January, and then this January, we know that we updated for next January, and we just keep it, eventually gets to January 2024, and we're like, aha, we do something.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like something as simple as a Google Calendar could be maintained, and that way, at any amount into the future that we want a reminder, and then you can customize, and that could be Natalie or whoever who maintains that. Hi, Natalie. Another question for you, Natalie. Speaking of, keeping track of things into the future. Obviously, when we have something to add to the agenda, we're almost always adding it to the upcoming agenda, the next agenda. If we wanted to add something to the agenda, like Charlie just said, for January, just so that it's on the horizon for us, can we do that with you? Can we add to the agenda that far in advance? That's another way to keep track of it, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. We actually, so our Jerry and I have been talking about this today. Our website domain, GoDaddy, just migrated our emails from Workspace webmail to Office 365. We're also talking about potentially migrating to Google instead. So I'm researching that right now. But regardless, of which platform we end up using, if we stick with Microsoft 365 or if we migrate to Google, I have a calendar set up already. So I can add that to that. So that's the long answer. That is yes.
Okay. It seems like sometimes there are things that we discuss that aren't necessarily coming up the very next month. And, you know, if we're all just sort of assuming that we remember, but then none of us do, I think having things noted somewhere digitally that a calendar keeps track of, a machine does it for us. It's
In my new work phone that is budgeted for this fiscal year, it will be in that calendar that will remind me forever until the end of time. So all of those things you send my way and it will go there. And eventually I will somehow migrate it to the full office so that we're all on the same page with the calendar. But in the meantime, it will be on that new office phone that is coming my way soon.
great. And
Thank you.
obviously I would think, and imagine with the level of detail that Julie always includes in the minutes, that that kind of stuff gets tracked there as well. But sometimes we're only dealing with those in a month-to-month fashion, and as soon as they're approved, we're not necessarily looking at them regularly. So so that's great that we have a mechanism and that we can continue to increase the efficacy of that. And thanks, Charlie, for bringing that up. That's a good reminder. Okay, so we're moving on to that last point of new business now. Discuss new board member appointment process, and I'll turn it over to you, Mitchell, since this is your agenda item.
Thank you. Commissioner Coyne submitted his resignation on July 2nd, effective as of August 1st. I have a copy of it because he's not here. I'd like to read it. It was sent to Natalie, the corporate secretary, and says, please accept this email as my official resignation from our Ridgeville Park District Board effective August 1st, 2021. Serving our neighbors these past years has been a wonderful experience and an opportunity that I'll cherish forever. It is my hope that our other commissioners can collaboratively discover my board seat's vacancy as soon as possible using an equitable lens, of course. Thank you for assisting me and our district in this matter. Feel free to reach out if I can be of further service. Sincerely, Commissioner Dan Coyne. So I would ask Charlie for guidance on what our next steps as a board should be in filling a vacant seat.
So you get to fill the vacancy by majority vote. There's no specific procedure on how you go about doing it. If you all were to just propose Joe Jones tonight and vote on him and it passed, he could assume the position on, I guess, August 1 or August 2, whatever. That has been done in other districts. They have a person in mind and they just vote on it and that's it. Another possibility is that you may want to decide to meet to discuss the process for how you go about doing it. That would be a board meeting closed to the public. We'd have to give notice and everything, but it would be closed to the public because the selection of a board member is an exception to the Open Meetings Act. That's another way of doing it. But I think most park districts just employ a procedure of communicating the vacancy on the board to the community and ask for applications of some sort, which can be formal or informal. A couple of pages on why you think you should be on the board. And then after looking at that, they may decide to narrow it to just a few and then conduct interviews with those particular candidates that caught their eye, or all the candidates, depending on how many applications there are. It's all how you want to proceed.
I can tell you in the past, when I was on the board years ago, we did have a commissioner, and that's what we did. We put it out there that, we have an opening on the board. And exactly like Charlie said, we had people, show interest, and then we decided who, if any or all, we wanted to interview. Just letting you know that's how it was done. Doesn't mean Has to be. but-
And the interviews would be at a closed board meeting.
Mhm.
And you would make your decision at a closed board meeting and you'd vote on it and then announce it at an open meeting.
I'm not sure why the resignation shouldn't be as of tomorrow.
Well, it's his choice on when to resign, I guess. And I don't know that it really matters because I don't think anything's going to be put to a vote between now and the day he mentioned.
Oh.
I did think though, Brian, do we know how much time is left in his term?
4 years.
So he has 4 years left.
4 years
So-
from like the election, from like April,
Yeah.
so 3+, more than 28 months.
So that's more than 28 months. So whoever the board selects will serve until the next election. And then at that time, somebody will be voted into the remainder of the term.
And to clarify, that'll be not next April, but the following April.
I think that's correct.
That's when
So
you're, Debbie?
That's when my term's up. Yeah.
So it's just until the next time Ridgeville elections are scheduled. The new appointed person would not fulfill the end of Coyne's term, correct?
Correct.
Right.
What does
Okay.
this mean? The second?
Yeah,
regular
I'm reading that. I'm a little confused right now as I'm reading it. So I'm going to go back to the statute and look at it again to make sure that I got that right.
Too bad that we don't have more staggered elections so that like we don't have 3 or 4 people coming up in one time.
So, I mean, we don't need to figure that out right now. What we just need to figure out is the process you want to employ to replace Commissioner Coyne. Now, the fact
So
that he's resigning on July 31 or August 1, I forget which, doesn't mean you can't start the process now.
Ah, okay.
So
Just to comment on that, I think the way it was done in the past, the way Debbie outlined, I think would probably be a good thing. I don't see any reason as to why, as a board, we wouldn't be able to interview everybody, seeing as though there was just an election and I ran unopposed. So I don't foresee a whole lot of, I don't foresee 10 people coming out for this, right? I would think if we got 1, 2, I doubt we'll see 3, but who knows? Maybe that would be great. So that would be my opinion, or my vote, whatever would be, that we put it out there. However, the board decides to put it out there, whether we want to put it on the Ridgeville social media and solicit interest that way, and then say, submit a written proposal to Natalie, and then we can go from there and try to schedule a either in-person or Zoom meeting with them before the August board meeting, or the August Ridgeville meeting, and then maybe hopefully vote on it at that point.
So the tendency among boards is to do that. More and more boards are doing things that way. If you don't get applicants, then people tend to go out and recruit somebody and then just vote that person in. And you may get 10 applicants, you may get 0. I don't know.
So I agree with Mick. I think that the process should be public. There should be ample opportunity for those that are interested to apply and have time to also see what the commitment is. I'll talk to the board members. I think it's ambitious to maybe vote at the August meeting, but so I guess that's, I think, the biggest question for us tonight is, can we get this done by the August and vote at the August board meeting, or alternatively have a separate meeting or push to September?
So let me make a recommendation here. From what I'm hearing, and I think it makes sense. Why don't you ask Natalie to post immediately that there'll be a vacancy coming up on the board, and you're looking for applicants for that immediately, and ask them to get their applications in to Natalie by I don't know, July. What's 2 weeks from today? I can't do the math, but let's say July 25th. And then if you have one application, it's different than if you have four. So I would suggest that once you do that, you just set a brief meeting, a closed board meeting, that you give notice now for a couple of days after the 25th. And then you can quickly thumb through and see you have 27 applications and try to decide how to do it, or you have one. So, you know, you decide, is this somebody we don't want on the board under any circumstances? Or is it, hey, this is the only guy willing to do it, so we can just vote him in. It doesn't need to be a lot of work unless you have 3 qualified candidates, and then you need to figure out what to do.
I have a question, Charlie. We have 1, 2, 3, a little bit over 3 weeks until Dan's resignation is even official, since he chose 8/1 as the effective date. Are we allowed to proceed with any of the aforementioned steps of, going about soliciting applicants and all of that? Are we
Yes.
allowed to engage in all of that officially
Yes.
as of now? Okay. We just
Yeah,
can't, we can't vote.
His resignation is final, as far as I'm concerned. He's going to serve until August 1st. So, and I'm glad you mentioned that. So maybe the thing to do is just set a closed board meeting for August 2nd. I don't know what day of the week that is.
It's
Just
a
figure
Monday.
a half hour when you guys can meet, which can be done by Zoom, just to discuss what results you've gotten in.
Right. I mean, I would like to give the public more than 2 weeks. I just don't think
That's
that's
up to
enough.
you.
Yeah, I don't think that's enough notice for people to find out about it, think about it, decide they're applying, fill out the application, especially speaking as a parent of a young child. I think a little bit more time than that is great. And we already have, like I said, just over 3 weeks, 3.5 kind of weeks until his resignation is even official. And then we have another almost 2 weeks before we meet again as a board. So if we're shooting to have somebody appointed by the August meeting, we have like 6 weeks almost. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 weeks. So
Hey, Martha, what if we set August 6th as the date they have to apply for, which would be a Friday, the week before the meeting, and then that would give us as a board Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to meet in a private session, and then we would still be ready to go for the meeting on the 12th.
okay, so I was going to suggest the 4th actually, which is a Wednesday, because the 5th is a Thursday. And since we all block off our Thursdays for these board meetings and we also have ready committee meetings on Thursdays, if we could plan to meet on the 5th and we require applications due by the 4th, that's, again, almost a month worth of days that it gives people. And that way we can have a special meeting on Thursday if that works, or like you said, that Friday, that next Monday. Anytime before the 12th, I believe it is our August meeting. And that way, everything else, like you just said, that we have time to, are we thinking that when we have a special meeting, we're not just reviewing the applications, we're actually, asking the applicants that we want to interview to be present at that meeting as well? Or no? Matt, you're shaking your head. So.
Completely up to you. I would think if you had more than one applicant, though, that you may want to interview them.
Right.
And
So that
you may want to, run the tentative budget in front of them, see if they have any thoughts on it, just to get an idea of how they think about these things.
But Charlie, I have a question for you. You mentioned that this is not subject to the Open Meetings Act, being able to meet for this specific purpose. Does that also mean that we can communicate as a board about this through email without having to be subject to OMA? Because
it has to be done at a meeting.
At a meeting.
Notice has to be given.
Even though the public can't actually attend the meeting.
Right.
Okay.
It's kind of akin to an employee review meeting.
Okay.
Hey, Martha.
Yeah.
I think your Thursday idea is great. I do think, based on what Charles is saying and the number of people, Maybe if we just backed it up a couple days for the date that they have to turn in their applications by, that would give us, say there are 2 or 3 applicants and we do want to interview them, that would give us some time to let them know that it's going to be Thursday the 5th versus the day after that the applications are due. You follow me?
You mean you want more of a cushion between when the applications are due and when we meet?
Right. So if we did it the Friday before, then it would give us 3 weekdays for us to talk, look at the
Review them.
applications,
Yeah. I think
review
that's wise,
them, and then the 5th, the 5th works for me. And I'm not speaking for everybody here, but the 5th, if ever that works for everybody, we could schedule that as our meeting when we're going to try to meet about this. So then, maybe if the Friday before we say applications are due to Natalie by the end of the business week, and then that would give us 3 weekdays to review, and maybe, if there's 2 or 3 of them, let them know that, Thursday evening, we'd like to speak with you, interview, that type of thing.
Right. And you know what, if Natalie, I saw your hand and I just wanted to respond to Mick real fast. If Natalie's able to post about this in various ways, hopefully effective tomorrow, but tomorrow's Friday. So even if we didn't, you can, okay. Even if we didn't post until Monday the 12th, that's the week of the 12th, the week of the 19th, the week of the 26th. That ends on Friday the 30th. That's a solid 3 weeks for people to have time to, everything from learning that there's a vacancy to turning in their application. And then if we don't meet until the 5th, like you said, Mick, we've got the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and then, the day of the 5th to review those applications. And then, I think as Charlie said, we'll see how many we get. We'll see if some of the applicants are people we're already familiar with, or if they're not people that we're familiar with, because if some or all of the board is familiar with somebody, maybe we won't feel like we need to interview that person or anyone who falls in that category. And if we do feel like we need to do interviews, perhaps folks, we could be planning to do a short interview only special meeting before the 12th, but that would only leave Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of that 2nd week of August. So, and Natalie wanted to speak, but Charlie, do you want to respond to that first?
No, that's fine. I was just going to say there's nothing wrong with recruiting people to submit applications. Mm-hmm. That if you know somebody in the community who you think might be a good candidate or might want to get involved, say, look, there's an opening. If you want, apply. That's all. You don't want to push them saying, we're going to pick you, but let them know that it's out there and they can apply. And there's nothing wrong with that.
It's how a lot of elected positions receive the candidates running in those positions as well, is that word of mouth and, talking to people in the community that we know are fans of Ridgeville and involved with Ridgeville and stuff like that. Natalie, you've been waiting to say something.
I just wanted to say quickly, I can post about this tomorrow. That's no problem. And I can also make it very clear in the post that the due date is whatever and the interview date is whatever. So even if it's the next day, I can make sure people understand that that's when it's happening. So
don't say there's an interview date. Just say potentially we may interview candidates.
Right.
You may get 7 applications and 3 of them, there's no way you're going to pick them, and so you may not want to interview them.
Okay, but
you get 3 candidates, interview everybody, but.
Yeah.
Natalie, maybe if you.
Thank you for clarifying. I was just making the point that I can let them know very clearly in the post the timeline of how this is going to happen. So if they need to potentially be available on a day for an interview or an executive session, I can make that clear. The thing I wanted to say though, Martha, is that I know we're meeting on July 15th with the Ready Committee. Technically, August 5th is a Ready night. So it might, and I don't know what's going to happen at that meeting, but I think maybe we should just keep that date clear for the possibility that we might meet as a committee that night.
I see what you're saying, and I did think of that when I suggested the 5th. However, we don't have all the Ready people to ask if they're available. But if we're meeting on the 15th, that still leaves 2 weeks between that meeting and the 5th. In other words, that often happens when we meet the first week and the 3rd week. You know what I mean? There's 2 more weeks after that. So if it worked for Ready people, since this application situation, you know, we want to give people more time as opposed to less time. If the Ready Committee is collectively available on the 29th, that's
Yeah.
still 2 weeks after we're planning to meet. You know what I mean?
We can certainly adjust Ready Committee. I just wanted to throw that out there just to keep
Right.
in mind that the 5th is technically
Ready
Ready night, but we can
Right.
move it around.
Let me
Right.
make another suggestion. After the applications are in, maybe a 15-minute meeting would be in order. Where just to discuss the status. We got 3 applications, we got 90 applications, and you could still have another meeting after that where you're going to deal with it, but just to discuss the status might be worth having.
I'm happy to schedule, if we pick a date as a board, if you pick a date as a board, I'm happy to schedule 15-minute increment meetings with these candidates. I will tell you, you need to show up at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever time you decide, and I can do that scheduling for you. That's an easy thing for me to do. So if you decide that you want to have 15 minutes with everybody that's interested, just let me know and I can make that happen.
Okay, and Charlie, again, just an OMA clarification. If we are holding these meetings to interview candidates, do we have to post 48 hours notice for those? And
Yeah, I would post that there'll be a board meeting to meet with the candidates individually, and on such and such date, and such time. I'm assuming you're going to do it by Zoom, so
well, I agree with you, Charlie, that Natalie shouldn't necessarily include something about the interview in the sense that we've scheduled it for such and such already, because
Yeah.
I think some of this has yet to be determined once we see who applies. But what we could do is meet on the 5th and have a very brief meeting, because Natalie, that could mean we still meet with Ready if we're talking about just a 15 to 30-minute meeting for the board to say, hey, we got applications from so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so, and whatever else we want to say about that. Kind of try to have, by the end of that meeting, a goal of which ones are we going to let know that we'd like to interview them. From then, Natalie can schedule that with those individuals. And as long as we post those, hopefully we can consolidate instead of like multiple meetings for multiple candidates. We could, like parent teacher conferences, give each applicant that we're going to interview like a 15-minute slot of a 45-minute meeting or whatever if we need to. And then
Yeah,
that
so
way we can post with 48 hours notice.
what
for
you
that.
would do is set a meeting for X date at X time, and somebody would, presumably Natalie, will give them a call saying, we'd like to be able to call you at such and such time to interview you further, so we'd like you to stand by then.
Yeah.
And you don't need to put any of that in the notice. You're just having a meeting to discuss who's going to fill the spot.
That's what I was suggesting, Martha.
Yeah.
Is I can take care of that. The board will have to decide on a day that they're able to meet in executive session, and then I'll take care of the scheduling with the candidates.
Right. I mean, but for our executive session to interview the candidates, I don't think that we need to specify that in the post where we advertise that people can apply. Definitely the application deadline needs to be in that post so that people have that sense of the timeline. And then I think, we'll just, as a board or Natalie on our behalf, contact those applicants that we want to interview as soon as possible, like once we've received those applications.
Sure.
Okay. And then Natalie, do you also want to maybe reach out to the Ready folks and just see how they feel about meeting on the 29th instead of the 5th?
I can't do that, but I can have Shama do it.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yeah. If you would have Shama do that, that would be great. And if we want to still meet Ready on the 5th, it'll be kind of a meeting intensive night. But if we were to keep the board vacancy application meeting brief, I think we could still meet with Ready as well as an option too.
That's fine. And we can also talk about it next week because we meet on the 15th.
Okay, Mick, were you waiting to say something?
Yeah, I have 2 things. First, Natalie, in the posting that you make, I just want to make sure that you clarify how long the term is for, right? That it's not a 6-year term. They're just filling in for whatever it may be, 2 years until the end of it. It may not be as daunting for somebody to want to step up and fill that seat just for the shorter period of time. My second is a question for Charles. Are we, and Matt and I kind of talked about this, if if somebody has a candidate in mind, are we allowed to, as a board, not one-on-one, like, so am I allowed to reach out and talk to somebody that Matt may know interested? Are we allowed to kind of all on our own time go out and speak with them and just kind of get to know them as a person?
I don't think there's any legal prohibition on that. It's a question of, what the board wants to do. If you have that, you get 3 applicants in and you each read the names and you guys may decide, hey, why don't we each try to schedule a coffee with this person to get to know them? Or why don't we have Debbie schedule a coffee and Matt will check around with people he knows. You can do that.
My only
nothing wrong.
My only reasoning is it might speed up this. If we do have an interview day or something, it may make that easier, more seamless if we've already, met with them or spoke with them on the phone, that type of thing. And it doesn't have to be anything formal, right? If Matt had somebody in mind, I just want to call them and say, hey, and, introduce myself to them. And that, that would be it. It's not like I'd have a laundry list of questions for them. It just might help speed up the process in the long run.
That's fine.
I mean,
I would
even-
highlight the pay they're going to get.
What's up?
Highlight the pay they're going to get for being on the board.
I would just remind you, Mick, too, that even as elected commissioners who are more regulated than, civilians or whatever you want to call the rest of the people, we're allowed to talk one-on-one, right? Because the OMA applies to us as a board such that 3 of us can't talk, but 2 of us can. So, you can definitely reach out to people. And I think that it would be great to do so because we obviously have to make a decision as a board at the end of the day on who we like. But getting to know them one-on-one, I think is a great idea if they're accessible and you're available and blah, blah, blah. Including people that haven't yet applied because you want to encourage them to do so. And possibly also people who, once we have the applications, I don't see why that wouldn't be a possibility as well. I have 2 questions for you, Charlie. One, can you please just investigate that weird thing of the second regular? Okay, because before Natalie posts, we might want to have clarification on that because when we're asking people to apply to this vacancy, we should probably be specific about the length of time that the term is. So we just need to know when we have to hold a special election because that's actually stipulated. We just don't understand it.
Yes, because as I'm reading it right now, if this is correct, but I'm going to go back to the statute. As I'm reading it right now, they would serve not to next April, but the 2 Aprils following that. So basically, it'd be a 2.5-year term.
In terms of like the total length of Dan's remaining term?
No, that would be the length of who would fill his spot.
Hey, Charles, I think it would be not next April, but the following April is the next scheduled election.
Like the second April.
Oh, okay.
not the
So it would
first
be, you're right, because we just had it this April. So
2020.
that would be almost the full term, really. So Dan was just reelected.
No, well, he was not in the most recent election. That was Mick. So Mick was elected 2 years before that. Dan, myself, and Matt were elected. So it's been 2 years plus however many months. And then, of 6. So it's more than half of the term that's left. Not quite 4 years, but more than 3. So we just need, like I said, we just need to know what the legal requirements are in terms of the date that our special election is, because that individual should know what length of time they're.
I should have that by Monday.
Okay. So Natalie, I think that's fine if you plan to post on Monday instead of tomorrow.
Okay, I'm going to post on Monday. I'm also going to set the deadline to Monday, August 2nd, because if you do have a special meeting on the 5th, that gives me at least 48 hours to post about it.
You're saying the deadline for the applications is going to be the 2nd?
Yes, because I have to post 48 hours in advance if you have a meeting. So it'll be executive session, but you still have to like log into the meeting, vote to go to executive session, do your interviews, whatever, come back and go away. But
No,
I have to post that 48 hours in advance.
Right.
We have the deadline on the 2nd. That gives me enough time to do that if you meet on the 5th.
But you're saying the 2nd instead of the 30th, as in the Friday before?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay.
That's what I give when I send the agenda to you. I have you give me edits and addition by that Monday at noon. So it'll be the same for the applicants.
Okay, I guess I'm just thinking that Charlie said that once we see who applies or doesn't, you know what I mean? Like the total number of people that we get and who they are, we may or may not feel that we need to interview people, because if we know all of the applicants and are familiar with them already, I could foresee that we won't necessarily schedule that. So in other words, if we have the applications due on the same day that you're planning to post about a special meeting, it doesn't give us much time to decide if we're having the special meeting or not. You know?
Oh, I see. Okay. So you want to do it July 30th?
I would say so. It also gives us the weekend to review the applications at our leisure for people who work and stuff like that. So that we can actually be more prepared for just reading them through. Who do we want to interview, if anybody? And then we kind of can get to you by Monday so that you can post. I mean, I think that's
got it.
Okay. And that still gives people a full 3 weeks of the time from when we notify the public that the vacancy exists to, when we're requiring applications submitted.
Okay. All right. Cool.
Okay. And then, if and when we're scheduling interviews, if we somehow want to do an interview with people on the Monday of, what is that, Monday the 9th, Tuesday the 10th, instead of meeting on the 5th, in case that's a ready conflict. I just think that's set up well. Is everybody okay with that? The other thing, Charlie, that I wanted to mention, I don't know if you'll have like an answer for this, but given that Natalie's not going to post until Monday, if you think there's specific language we should use in this regard, you could let her know. I've seen a lot of job postings recently that encourage women and different gender identities, people of color, et cetera, all of the correct terminology that applies to all of those situations. The job postings will often say people of blah, 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 and name all of these, groups of people.
Yeah, you're not hiring somebody. This is not a job.
Well, right. But when we say are encouraged to apply, we are asking people to apply for a position. So I'm just wondering, from an equity standpoint, is there some wording that would be legally safe that we could add that makes it clear that we are absolutely encouraging people from these historically marginalized, et cetera? Or are you saying from a legal perspective?
I would avoid that because I don't know what all the commissioners think. I don't know how they're going to vote. I think you just want people who are willing to serve in this role. And, if it comes down to it and you interview 3 people and 2 of them are women, some commissioners may decide that that's enough, that they want to support them. And there's nothing wrong with that. They can do that. There's no test on why you're voting for someone or not. You get to select. I would avoid it, but I don't think there's anything wrong with you calling up Susie Homemaker and saying, we don't have enough women who are homemakers on the board, so why don't you apply? Or anything of that nature. There's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
There's voices that are neglected that you think would be better on the board. You should identify people and call them up and say, hey, you know what? In the past, we haven't had an LGBTQ candidate or commissioner, and I think it would be good from the perspective of the public and for the board to have somebody of that nature. And I understand you identify that way, and why don't you consider applying? There's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think you want to put anything else out there other than, anybody eligible to be elected as a commissioner.
Okay, and speaking of eligibility, what technically are the eligibility requirements? Simply that you live within the Ridgeville Park District boundaries. Is there any age requirement?
I don't know that. I assume there is, but it's never come up. I mean, it's not something I would typically deal with because typically commissioners fill out petitions and that gets submitted and they're put on the ballot. But I'll look to see if there is an age requirement. My guess is it would be 18.
Yeah.
I think you just have to be an elector. You have to be.
Yeah.
Okay. It just occurred to me that, some elected positions like the president of our country, does have an age requirement and this and that, and you had to be, so
if I looked at the statute, if the statute was older, it may still say 21. But that may have gotten changed. I just haven't looked at it, so I don't know.
Okay. If that's something you can clarify and just let Natalie know so she can include that, because if there is anything specific, we can include it. So,
Yeah.
Mick, did you? I can't remember if you had your hand up or no. No. Okay. Anybody else have any questions, ideas, issues about that? Okay, I think we're good then. Charlie will get back to Natalie. Natalie will post on Monday, and we'll be expecting that we receive applications no later than the 30th. And then Natalie, how do you want to handle disseminating the applications? Do you want to give them to us as they come in and just email each of us, or do you want to collect them all and we don't get them until they're done?
Whatever you want.
I would prefer to see them as they come in, unless somebody has a problem with that, because I think it just helps spread it out. So we're not, in the event we do get a lot of applications, which is maybe unlikely, we're not, reading 10 applications or more on any given weekend. We can just.
How about I forward them to you as they come to me? And then on the 30th, I'll send you an email just reminding you who those candidates were. So you have a list, right?
I think that's great.
Okay.
Debbie, did you have something to say? No? Okay. All right. I think we're good on that. So we've still got call of the commissioners here. We'll go through that. We don't have coin, but I'll just go alphabetically otherwise. So Debbie, did you want to say anything? Debbie, your mute button went off, but we still can't hear you for some reason. It does. I saw you turn it off.
Yeah.
Oh, now we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I just wanted to say that, and I think Natalie sent a card to Tasha Wilson, who became a sergeant. So unfortunately, she's no longer a beat cop for us, but she is a sergeant. So that's all.
Thank you. Alphabetically, I am next. And actually, I just wanted to add to that Sergeant Tasha Wilson is the first Black woman sergeant for
first Black woman that grew up in Evanston.
Oh, okay. I didn't know
the whole
that
big thing. Yeah.
Nonetheless, an awesome achievement. So congratulations to Sergeant Wilson again. And that's it from me. And so Mitchell, you're next.
No, I have nothing. Thank you.
Sure. And Mick, you are next.
Happy late 4th of July. I hope everybody's having a great summer.
You too.
Alrighty, so where does that leave us? Citizen comments again. And so I don't think I've seen that anyone has joined, but we'll give it just a second here in case anyone wants to chime in. Alrighty, I don't think we have any citizen comments, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
This is Braun. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
And is there a second?
Mitchell seconds.
And Julie, if you would roll call adjournment.
Sure. Ron,
Yes.
again. Mitchell,
Yes.
Morale,
Yes.
and Gaines.
Yes.
Very good.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
You have a
Good
great
night.
month.